Hello there guys, and welcome to the first video in our educational series for TaxiFit. But I'm going to be teaching you everything it is that you need to know about health and fitness, so as that no matter what happens in your life, no matter what obstacles come your way, even if it's in 20, 30 years time, that you have the tools to be able to get your health and fitness back on track and to be able to help out your friends and family and all that good stuff. How we tackle our health and fitness is we work on something called the 3 pillars of health, which is what TaxiFit is all about. We're going to be addressing mobility and joint pain. The next thing we start addressing is cardiovascular health. And the next topic we address is body fat management. These 3 pillars, when they're worked on and they get brought up, are the biggest things that start improving what life quality and life longevity is going to be. So the first thing we're going to be covering is mobility. And you might sit there sometimes and think, well, what does mobility even mean? All mobility means is the ability to move through a large range of motion with strength. When we have good mobility, it gives us feelings of athleticism. It gives us a better feeling of natural coordination. It makes us feel more injury resistant towards life. When we have poor mobility, when we have restrictions in the muscle tissue, things don't quite sit right inside the body. The skeleton gets pulled a bit off axis, and that's where we start getting joint pain and problems coming in. See, the main culprit of poor mobility is deep muscle weakness. And what I mean by deep muscle weakness is this. We're not talking about surface layer muscles, things like your pec, when you're doing bench press or whatever, you can see your chest all blown up, awesome. We're talking about muscles that are on the deeper layers that control our fine movements, things like the rotator cuff. We won't go into too much detail right now, but the rotator cuff is a group of 4 muscles inside the shoulder that helps to control all this motion and also things like just rotating the arm, hence rotator cuff. And if the rotator cuff gets stiff and weak, for instance, our ability to do things like throw a ball is massively hindered. And the reason why this tightness starts affecting posture is, well, look at it like this. Muscle fibers are not super different from clothing fibers. If I start tightening up just one area, you'll see everything else starts getting pulled in that direction. So when we have a lot of tightness in one area of the body, typically everything starts getting pulled that way. That's when we can start having things like one hip that's higher than the other, shoulder can start dropping down to one side. The skeleton is literally getting pulled off axis, and that's what starts causing us problems. These issues are the reason why our sessions are structured the way they are. We do a lot of dynamic flexibility at start to try and warm up our muscle tissues and to try and get a bit of a better range of motion so the skeleton sits better. And then we do exercises that help to strengthen all the deeper layer muscles so that we can lock in that new posture and get some good gains. Over time, the more and more we do this, the more permanent and long-lasting those new posture benefits are. And because we're now sitting right with no restrictions or anything like that, we start getting a natural feeling of improved athleticism and we start getting better injury prevention whenever we take on any new activities. Now, the thing with mobility issues is if you do have tightness in your body, let's say, you've got weakness in that area or you're recovering from a surgery and you've never done rehabilitation properly, that will never get improved by resting, which is the reason why if someone gets pain, that pain tends to last for years. But the good thing is that once you start doing the right treatments for it, the improvements happen rapidly. With good treatment, you can literally start feeling better session by session. And all of a sudden, pains that can be with you for 10 to 20 years at a time can go away in the short space of a couple of months, maybe even a couple of weeks if you're lucky. So the next important thing that we're going to be working on, our next pillar of health, is cardiovascular fitness. Now, for good cardiovascular fitness, right, you don't need to have lungs like a blue whale and be able to run like Mo Farah. But what you do need to have is a decent resting heart rate and low blood pressure. Because a high resting heart rate and high blood pressure is probably the biggest leading indicator for heart attacks. And heart attacks are unfortunately one of the biggest killers for middle-aged men and above. Now, as I said, we don't need to do anything crazy to actually get ourselves just to a good level of cardiovascular health. One of the best things about being a human, in fact, is that humans are the most cardiovascularly capable land animals on the planet. Over a long distance, fit humans can outrun horses, which is nuts. Whenever we start working our cardiovascular system, it adapts quickly. So what is it you need for it? Well, honestly, just a little bit of light exercise a couple of times a week and getting in your regular steps, 5 to 10,000 steps a day, has a huge impact on what resting heart rate is like and blood pressure. So it's not that it needs to be super intense, we just need to work on it regularly. The next pillar of health is body fat management. If we have a high amount of body fat and we have poor mobility, the extra stress and pressure that we're putting on joints is just absolutely insane, and the chance of developing arthritis early goes right through the roof. If we're carrying a lot of excess body fat and we have poor cardiovascular health, well, things get bad pretty quickly because the more weight that we carry, the more oxygen that we need to carry around that weight. So if we have poor cardiovascular health, if your heart can't beat a lot of oxygen around just with a couple of beats, it's going to need to start working harder to be able to get that oxygen around. That starts increasing the resting heart rate, that increases blood pressure, and leads us on a fast track to having a heart attack. If we have high body fat and we have a lack of cardiovascular health and we're not really doing exercise, well, typically when people have higher body fat, they have a lot of excess sugar around the blood. It's what we call glucose. It's literally the sugar that we use when we do exercise. And when we're not doing anything to be able to use up that sugar, That's what starts getting us on the path towards getting diabetes. Now, the good news is when it comes to managing body fat is that although adopting a healthy lifestyle right away might be a difficult habit to be able to get into, the actual science of being able to lose body fat is pretty simple. See, to lose body fat, all we need to do is use more energy than what we're intaking on a day-to-day basis. All the energy that we eat that's measured within food, we call calories. And that's all it is. Calories is just the energy within food. Whenever we look at foods that we class as unhealthy, typically all they are foods that are really, really high in energy without being high in vitamins and minerals. When we get foods that we call healthy, usually those are foods that are relatively low in energy, but they have a high amount of vitamins and minerals. If we're eating foods that are high in energy and we have a relatively low energy life, like we're just sitting around for 8 to 12 hours a day, we're not getting any steps or any exercise or anything like that, then all that excess energy that we're not using, we start storing in time for use at a later date. Where do we store it? We store it in our body fat. Everything around our belly there, that is literally an energy bank. However, if we start eating a low amount of energy and we start expending a high amount of energy, then to make up for this energy deficit, all this energy that we're not getting in, we start turning towards our body fat banks, these energy banks. We start using up that energy, and that's what starts burning body fat down as time goes by. Now, for most people, they don't need to start eating rabbit food or anything like that. You just need to get a better relationship with some foods that are lower in energy, and they need to start moving around a little bit more on a day-to-day basis, and it can have a profound effect on body fat. So over the next coming weeks, these 3 topics that we've just gone through, these are the things that we're going to be doing deeper dives into so you can learn more. Next week, we're going to be doing a deeper dive into mobility, where we're going to be learning more about the kind of muscles that we train in the sessions so you really understand why it is that it's so important for posture and why it is that you got to look after those things for the rest of your life if you want to age gracefully. And then the week after that, I'm going to be teaching you about body fat management through giving you nutrition tips and giving you activity advice as well. So you can start working on that body fat and we can start using up these energy banks. For now, I hope that you've enjoyed the light learning, just covering all 3 of these topics so you can know why they're important and what the risks are if we don't look after these things. But don't worry, guys. You can have great faith inside this bootcamp that we're going to be tackling all these issues. So until then, enjoy, guys. Have a good weekend.